Hey guys, how's it going? This is Jordan Flowers with Redeeming Dry Bones Ministries. Last few weeks I've talked to you guys about who is God to me and who am I to God. Today I want to talk about the purpose and the plan that God has for you. See, God created each and every one of us with intention. He created each and every one of us with certain abilities and certain characteristics that we can actually fulfill a certain role in the world. See, we are all on a fast track to hell. When we were born into this sin-filled world where sin just kind of has its hold on us. And we made that decision with Adam back in the garden. And we chose death. But God says, I want you. I want to have relationship with you. I want to have fellowship with you. I want you to be my child. And so He calls us out of that. He calls us to follow after Him. Not everybody follows after Him. I want that to be clear. God has called, but not all have answered the call. See, those who have answered the call, God has chosen for a specific role. I'm not saying that God doesn't have intention for everybody to have a specific role, but I am saying that when people answer the call, God has a role for them to fill. See, in John chapter 15, verses 16, Jesus is talking to His disciples. Earlier in the chapter, He starts telling them that He is the vine and they are the branches. And through Him, they are united and they do the Father's work and bear fruit. So, in verse 16, He says, "You did not choose me, for I chose you, and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that lasts, and so that whatever you ask of the Father will be given to you." Now, He's not saying that if you follow after Jesus, you ask God for something, He's going to give you a car. No. He's saying that because He has chosen us, because He sought after us, we are able to bear fruit. Now, if you look at the context, Jesus sought out His disciples. He handpicked them. He came to where they were and He said, "Follow me. I'll make you fishers of men." And then they had the choice to follow after Him. But they did not initially choose God. They did not initially choose to follow Jesus. He chose them and asked them to follow Him. See, it's the same thing in our lives today. We didn't choose God, but God chose us and He's called us to Him. We did not initially choose God, but He intentionally sought us out so that we can be the people that He created us to be. God has created us to become leaders and to love one another with intention. See, in the rest of verse 17 of chapter 15 of John, "This is my command, love each other." See, we've been called to follow after God and to love each other because we are made to serve one another. Maybe that's in a role of a teacher, a role of a parent, a role of a businessman or a businesswoman, or the role of a worship leader or a pastor. God has called you to be a leader of someone or something. He has given you abilities that you cannot understand. And He has chosen you to be that specific leader. See, in my life, God called me to be a pastor. I knew this from a very young age. If you know my family, we are very, very broken. We have a lot of generational sin that has just been passed down through the generations. God called me out. God said, "I want you to break the generational sin in your family." Now, I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm just saying that God chooses people for very specific things. For me personally, it was to become a pastor and to drive a stake in the ground and stop the generational sin in my family. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at God and said, "Why have you chosen me to do this? There are so many other people in my family, yet you choose me." It's just like Gideon in Judges 6, when the Spirit of the Lord comes down to Gideon and says, "Rise, mighty man of valor, for I have called you." And Gideon's like, "Dude, you got the wrong guy. I'm from the smallest house, and I am the youngest son. I am nothing. I'm not a leader. You're calling the wrong dude." And God says, "Have I not called you, mighty man of valor?" See, there's the tie-in. God has called you and chosen you specifically. Therefore, apart from Him, we cannot accomplish who He's called us to be. But through Him, we can become the people that He has called us to be. See, when I was younger, God placed this thing on my life to be a pastor, and I ran the other direction. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be a leader. I wanted to be a grunt. I wanted to just do hard manual labor and stay in the background because I don't want to lead anybody because I'm afraid to fail. What are you afraid of in your life? Are you afraid of failing those around you? Are you afraid of not being the best that you can be? Are you afraid that you will never attain the call, or you'll never be enough for what God has called you to be? I'm here to tell you right now, you never will be enough. It's a little secret that nobody really ever tells you. When we're kids, we're told you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want to be. Then as we get older, reality hits and we realize we can't really be everything that we want. We can't really be everything that we want to be. But God can. Backtrack. We cannot be everything that we want or everything that we want to be, but through the power of God, we can become the people that He has called us to be. Because God can do anything. God is omniscient and God is all-powerful. If He's called you to be someone, if He's called you to be a worship leader, if He's called you to be a pastor, if He's called you to be a teacher, and you're afraid to step out in that because there's just something where you're not enough, don't worry. He is. He chose you. You did not choose Him. He chose you. He called you. The great thing about that is God isn't going to pick you up from where you're at and then just leave you on the wayside and say, "Figure it out, dude. Good luck." No, God says, "Look, I chose you. I created you for a purpose, and I'm going to give you the ability to fulfill that purpose in your life." See, God doesn't just call us and then not equip us. No, He calls the broken for a reason, because the broken have nowhere else to go. We see this with Gideon. We see this with Moses when God comes to him in the burning bush and tells him to lead Israel out of Egypt. We see this when God comes to Noah and says, "Build an ark." We see this when God gives Isaiah a vision where he sees God, he sees the angels, and God says, "Who shall we send?" And Isaiah says, "I am a man of unclean lips. You can't send me." And he burns his lips with a coal and purifies his lips. See, God has the ability to do what you cannot do. God has the ability to build you into who you were meant to be. And He loves you where you're at. You don't have to be who you're called to be for God to come alongside you. God comes alongside you where you are right now. Just like Jesus went and found the disciples where they were at. And then He led them into who they were meant to be. If you guys remember, Peter was very good at opening his mouth and shoving both feet inside in one move. God called him to be a leader in the church, and he was actually one of the founding fathers of the early church. He couldn't have done that without Jesus giving him the full capacity to do it. We cannot fulfill our own capacity, but God fulfills it for us. And praise God, He loves us too much to leave us on the wayside. See, the thing about Jesus is He did choose us. The thing about God is He did choose us. And He loves us, and He has the very best for us if we choose to follow after Him. Like you, I've spent many times asking God, "Why did you choose me? Why am I the one that you want to do this?" And God says, because it's not about you, it's about me. See, the love of God meets you where you're at and takes you to where you want to be, who you want to be. Fear will try to tell you that you can never be that person. And you know what? In your own power, fear's correct. But in God's power, you can be anything that He's called you to be. So trust in God. Step out of that boat. Don't look at the winds and the waves. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Because your faith in who He is, will bring you to where you want to be if you allow Him to lead you. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, this is Redeeming Dry Bones Ministries. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think. I know we've been doing this for a little bit now, and if this is helping you guys, let me know. I don't want to do this for me. God has called me to do this for you. So whatever's working for you guys, please let me know. I love you all so much. You guys just be blessed, and remember that God chose you. And He loves you right where you are, and loves you too much to let you stay there. And He's going to take you to who you're meant to be if you let Him. I love you all. God bless.